Good morning, Sandra. How are you? How's your Thursday going so far? It's raining here in Northwest Ohio. We're supposed to get some more severe storms this afternoon. Yeah, you made it. You're the first one on, too. Hi, Holly. How's everybody doing? So a lot of my demonstrator friends are in Houston right now because today's the first day of Onstage. Stampin' Up! Made their convention instead of a one-day event. They went back to the 3 days. I unfortunately couldn't go. Even if I had registered, now that, Oliver with his cancer, I just wouldn't have felt right about going because we couldn't have known that in his journey he's hanging in there right now. But I didn't know that when the vet in December said 1 to 2 months. So number one, I could never leave one of my fur kids with an illness like that and expecting, my husband to handle that alone. So I would have ended up having to cancel, but he is hanging in there. We are like a month past what they gave him, and we'll just see how it's going. The tumor is ugly, but he's affectionate. He's eating and drinking, and, nothing is telling me that today is the day. So we will let Oliver let us know that, and we're just so happy for another day, every day that we have with him. So, but I know my friends are having a good time. I'm so excited for them. I know that they'll keep me updated. The one thing I really miss about Onstage is getting that new catalog, or a sneak peek of it anyway. I think they get the catalog. So they're going to get a preview of what demonstrators next week will get with a PDF online. So I'm excited. Hi, Linda and Mindy, Peggy. Hi, Debbie and Sharon, Vesta. Good morning, everybody. Hi, Lori. So I'm so glad that you can spend some time with me this morning. And I've got a cute card for you today. It's very simple. And sometimes we just need that simple project just to kind of regroup. But also I had all these scraps sitting on my desk because of the cards I had been making in the past couple of weeks. So I am using the zinnia paper again. It's kind of my favorite and it's hard to break away from it. I can't say that I'm using it again because I'm trying to use up the paper because I got 2 more packs waiting for me. But, it's the colors, it's the brightness, it's how happy these colors can make you feel. So I'm working with it again today. And these are happy cards again today. So we're just going to do a scrappy patchwork, but there's ways to step up those patchwork squares. And I want to show you some different things that I did and just to step it up a little bit. But this is totally a great card for those who don't have dies. Maybe you've got some punches, but you don't have to have the whole kit and caboodle to do it. So I am going to turn the camera around, and while I'm doing that, please say good morning to each other. Again, I just have to readjust some things in my craft space in front of me, and we'll get started. I try to go slow on that part right there because I don't want anybody to feel seasick. Let's see, that's a little top heavy. I think I got to bring my books. Hopefully you all aren't going to end up on my desk. Hold on. Now slide that back. Okay. That's better. We got to flip some mirrors here. I think I can bring it down just a little bit more. Maybe I have to go back. There we go. We'll get it figured out. Okay, so I just got to move the computer. Okay, I think things are in reach for me. This is the March host code if you are placing an order with me, and it's under $150. Hi, Linda. Hi, Betty. Two Lindas. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Jean. Okay, so we are going to get started. I'll leave that up there just for a little bit, but if it gets in my way, then I am going to move it. And I want to make sure that I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to move it. The host code is pinned to the top of the my Facebook page. I really do need the room, and I need you to be able to see what I'm doing, so I want to get everything in camera. Hi, Lori, Stephanie, Darlene. I did change the color of my card base because I was looking, I made, several, and I had already done a yellow one, the Lemon Lolly, so I switched it out for Lemon Lime Twist, but use whatever you prepared, okay? There's so many possibilities to this. But yes, I did, because as I got going making samples, I ended up using a Lemon Lolly, and I didn't want to do two of them because when I'm all done, I wanted to have different colors. So, great notice on that. I'm not going to show you anything yet because I really like this idea of this is kind of like a mystery quilt card type thing. So, I've got here a 1.5 by 6 inch strip of each of the designer series papers that are in the Zinnia, Flowering Zinnia designer series paper 12 by 12 pack. And so this is one side of the papers, and then this is the other side. We're going to cut these down into some squares, and I'm going to cut 2 from each so that I have a total of 12, and then I've got a few extra here because we always like to have options, especially if we see that one color might work better in a certain area when it's surrounded by other patterns and colors and what we have left. I don't ever like to have to settle for something. I like to have options and switch things out if need be. Hi, Sharon from New York. Thank you. How are you? You guys, I think, are going to be getting the storms too that are coming through. We're getting them from, I want to call it the Midwest, but it looks like Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. We're due for some pretty good red cell coverage this afternoon yet. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Debbie. I know this paper. It's so hard to get away from this paper. It's just so fun and happy. You know, it's so, I just love it. Okay, so we've got our strips that we'll cut into squares. And then we're going to be working on 3.5 by 4 3/4 pieces of basic white. This is going to get covered up. I wanted something a little heavier than copy paper or grid paper as a foundation, but some of the other cardstocks are pretty thick, and I didn't want it to get too thick. So basic white cardstock is a real happy medium if you want to use this for under your designer series papers and stuff as a foundation. So I've got that. And then we've got a layer that this is going to sit on. And it's just a very scant border. So this is, we're going up 1/8 of an inch. So this would be the lemon lolly is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. And then we have our card base, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and I scored it at 4 1/4. There's nothing fancy about this card base. Okay, we're gonna let the quilt block do all the work for us. So those are the pieces that we're gonna be using. I'm also going to be using a pen and pencil because I just want to draw a line on my basic white to get me started. And I like to have the pencil handy when I want to outline an area where I know I want glue to be so that it doesn't end up where I don't want it to be. Okay, so let's bring in the trimmer. Oh, Debbie, you just got your zinnia suite. Oh my gosh. You know, I've only been around Stampin' Up, really back into it for 5 years. I really think this is, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to say it because there have been some other designer series paper that I just fell in love with, but I think they really outdid themselves on this one. So let's bring in our squares. And I'm going to cut 2 1 1/2 inch squares from each strip. They're 1 1/2 by 6, so cutting them at 1 1/2 will make them square. And I'm going to cut 3 at a time. My blade is fairly sharp, so I can get away with that. And one thing about cutting different, you know, strips of paper at the same time is that you know that your cuts are going to be pretty identical. So if you're using those pieces next to each other, they're all going to be the same. They're not going to be off just by like a hair or something. If you were putting them in one at a time and cutting them, and you might be just a little over, you might be a little under, but if you can cut multiples at the same time, then you're pretty much guaranteed that they're all going to work together. Hi Linda, how are you? How's Oklahoma doing? Hi Barb. Okay, so I'm going to put these in and I'm going to cut them at 1 1/2. And I found cutting them on this side, the right side of the track, this is 1 1/2 inches right here on this side. So I just put them over here to this bumper. And I cut them at 1 1/2 inches. These do not have to be perfect because we're going to be trimming off whatever we don't use. So I'm just going to put them all back together. And again, I wanted 2 because I will have the front and the back then as options for in my card. What is left, you can use if you're wanting to use a punch when we get to that part about how we're going to step up the squares. You can cut them down, you can use a punch, a die, just extras to work with, okay? The block takes 12 of these 1 1/2 inch squares. Okay. So I'm going to set my extras to the side because they will be my go-to if I feel I either want a second square of the same color. They become very useful in that way. That's all the cutting that we're going to do. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm going to bring in that piece of basic white. I'm also going to bring in a ruler and a pencil. And I want my rows, I don't want them straight. I want them on an angle. And I could just lay them down and, you know, go across. But I like, it's a me thing. I like to have a line. And so how much of an angle do I want will depend on where I draw that line. I just kind of want a subtle angle. Maybe like that. This is coming down. 1, 2, 3. I've got about 1.25 inches over here and maybe, I don't know, between 1/2 and 3/4 on the other side. It doesn't have to be exact. What you're looking for is the angle that you want. Do you want a subtle angle? Do you want a drastic angle? And depending, I guess, maybe on the angle, you might need more than 12 squares. I'm not sure. I've been doing all my cards just this way. So this is just to get me going. Good morning, Kathy, and good morning, Carol. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in those squares. And I want to see all the patterns. So I'm just going to flip these all over. And that's going to be like my palette. Okay. And you know what? This is all about just playing and putting colors next to each other that work best. Okay, we want to see some contrast. So I think I'm going to start with this red right here. And I'm going to kind of put it in the middle or maybe off to the side a little bit. Here's the fun thing about this patchwork. We're not lining up any corners. We're purposely going to offset each row so you don't have to match anything up. This is all about playing. And to make sure, I'm going to put glue where it needs to be instead of like picking this up and holding it and, you know, guessing where my glue is going to be on the back. I'm going to go ahead and put my glue right on the basic white. And you know what? I think I better bring in my silicone mats. And I'm just going to paint in some liquid glue. And then I'm going to lay my square back down. And now I'm just going to pick something to the side. I think I'm going to do this one here. You know, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, which is one of the things that I found really nice and relaxing about doing this, was just picking up the paper, seeing what fits where. And it was very calming, like if I was just sitting at the table putting a puzzle together. This is rather a dark, bright color, so I think I want something lighter. These are my little extras that I can play with. Something lighter and brighter. Maybe this green right here. That pops. But what I don't want to do is get hung up on whether they, you know, work next to each other. We're going to be putting a cluster together with a sentiment on it, so it's going to cover up some of the squares. Right now, I just want to put a pattern down that I feel, you know, looks good. I'm just going to, and what I wanted to point out was we're going to offset. See, I'm not going to put this right underneath this green one. I'm going to slide it over a little bit. I have to make sure that I cover up my white cardstock. But we're going to offset it, so we're not matching up anything. It doesn't have to be matchy-matchy. And again, just so that I know where to put some glue, I'm just going to outline it. Just makes it easier. Okay. And then it's just a matter of what we want to put next to it. I don't know about that. Maybe. And you don't have to worry about the direction either. I think I'll put that green there. Now this one, I can put it right on the back of the square because I don't have to be worried about a piece that's coming off the edge and whether I would have glue on my designer series paper on the back, because I'm going to be using snips in my trimmer and I don't want to get everything gummed up. So now I think I'll put that one right there. So this whole pencil thing is just something that I do for me. I have found that it just kind of keeps my fingers from getting gunked up with adhesive when I'm trying to hold the square and then, you know, it gets off onto other things. It just seems to work for me. And now I'm just going back and forth. So I think I'll come over here. Now I need to know that I have to place this so that I'm covering up the cardstock. I think I'm going to slide it over just a little bit. But you know what I'm thinking? Maybe I need I'm going to do this right here. I'm trying to mix some florals with the patterns. I'm just going to try that. Another thing, has anybody, if you're watching and you're a sewer, have you ever done like the flip and sew placemats or blocks, anything like that with quilting? And you know, you're just grabbing scraps, and at the time that you're putting it together, you're like, this is just one chaotic mess. I'm not gonna like it. But then you trim off all of the excess that's hanging out over that edge, and when you flip it over, you're like, oh my gosh, this works. Well, this is how I feel about this this panel that we're doing. It can look really chaotic and you may not like it when you're looking at it, but then you trim it all up and you're pleasantly surprised. I think I'm going to save that one for down there. We'll bring in our petal pink here. And again, if you are looking at the blocks the squares that you have to work with, and you're like, I really don't like all of them, well then cut another one. You're not locked into anything. Maybe put this purple one here now. I think I'll do that. I just really needed kind of like, I don't want to say a mindless project for today, but we've been doing so many stars and different quilt blocks that I just needed a play day. Just, you know, nothing that has to be exact. Kathy says, I can't just grab the scraps. I still try to put my 40 years of logic. We have to free our minds, Kathy. I am a planner also, and it's really hard for me, even with the Scrappy quilt, not to get too logical about it. So we have to give ourselves permission to play. Does this one have a name, Peggy? No, it doesn't. It's just a Scrappy Patchwork is what I was calling it for the live. And Vesta says, I'm relaxing. Yay. So, let's go. Now see, if I start here, if I start on this end and I've got to cover up that white, look how close I am to making these two corners match. And I want to offset it, so I'm not going to start there. I'm going to, let's bring in this green, and I can pretty much, and if you've got a square that's a little longer than the other one, can you see how this purple one's just a little bit longer? When you go to glue your block down, just put it over the top that is hanging down so that it all looks like it's, you know, on the same line. Okay. I think it's like, how much do I want to overlap it? I think I'm going to do that right there. Get a little glue up there so that it attaches itself. And then what haven't I used? I don't want to put that, I don't want two flowers like that together. So nope, don't want to come back in with that. Don't want to come back in with that. Okay, so I already put that green down. I should have put a flower over there, maybe. Well, since it's only a little piece, and I'm going to cut most of it off, if I put that white up there, then it kind of separates those two flowers. That's what I'm going to do. Again, we're going to be covering up some of these blocks or squares. Not by a lot, but, well, it depends on how big your cluster is going to be with your sentiment and some greenery. Now when we trim this off, or trim it up to get all of this, okay, let me show you. When you flip it over here, you've got a lot of pieces that we're going to cut off. You can save the pieces that you're going to cut off for instances like this, when you're only going to need a little bit to cover your next panel that you do. So I save the bigger pieces. I don't save the smaller pieces. I save a piece that I know will cover, you know, at least half the area. So now what we're going to do is just going to flip it over. And I like to get one side trimmed up, and then I'm going to bring in my trimmer and I like to use my trimmer because I find that I'm not a very straight cutter. So now that I've got a straight edge, I'm going to bring the trimmer in. And I know that this is 3.5, so I'm going to kind of put that up there at 3.5. I'm looking at the corner of my basic white here and the 3.5 inch line. I'm also looking to see right up here that the edge of the basic white is right along the side of the cutting track. And I'm just gonna trim that off. And then we're just gonna pivot. Again, I'm gonna save the bigger pieces just in case I need them. But if I don't, then I'll just get rid of them. There we go. Now, here's the magic. When I flip it over, I might have been thinking, oh, I don't like this by all that chaos that was going on. But when I flip it over, look how pretty that is. I just think it's so pretty when you get all the mess off of it and you flip it over. It just got this really pretty patchwork look to it. So don't give up when you're putting all those squares down and you're like, I don't like any of this. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. Okay, so here is my panel. Now, at this point, you can quilt it if you want to. If we want to step it up and maybe put a square on top of a square, we can do that. I cut some just 1-inch squares out of my leftover designer series paper. And you can do just a cut 1-inch square and look at where you might want, let's say I wanted a pop of color on this petal pink because it's so soft. You know, you can just come in with a bright color to help make that pop. So maybe even though this is right next to it, I mean, you could put something very bright on your darker colors. But before you get to putting squares down on top of your other squares, let's talk about the cluster, because you don't want to build an area that is just going to get covered up by your sentiment. So this is, I believe, the Everyday Label Punch. And what I want to do is I want to just see, where do I want to put this down? I wouldn't want to put another square on top of this square if all I'm going to do is end up covering it up. So if you know where your cluster is going to be, some might get, depending on how big your cluster is, you may easily hide almost a whole square. But I think I'm just going to go right there. So that pink square that looked like it needed a pop of color, well, my label just gave it great contrast right there. So if I know that this is where my cluster is going to go, then I'm going to look at the squares around. And do I want to build on top of them? And you can even, oh, I like this. You're going to glue it down and then go and trim off anything that's hanging off to the side. So even though you don't have a full square, you can still put another square on top, you're just going to trim it off then. So I like that. Now here I'm going to have to just put my fingers where I don't want their glue to be. And I'm just going to put that down right there. So I'm going to build on top of that one. And I really want to put something there, but what do I have? That I feel pops. Now I could do that petal pink because it brings in these colors, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, And don't force it. If it's not going to happen, then just forget about it. No, I don't like that. Oh, I don't not like the green on the green. I don't know. Hi, Jill. How are you? Hey, how's everything in Houston? Oh, you know what? It's the time change. Doesn't it start here pretty soon? Have fun. Keep us posted on everything. Gosh, I just don't know what I want to do here. And it's not that I can't use the same... See, I'm forcing it, and that's no fun. Maybe I'll just put this one down here, and by the time I put my... No, I know I want something there. You know what? I'm coming back with this green. I like all of those greens together. Or maybe I leave that green one alone, and I put a pop of orange up here with the red. I think I'm going to do that. I'm telling you, don't overthink it. And what am I doing? I'm overthinking it. Okay, those are the only squares that I'm going to do, because there's more to build on here. So I don't want to get too carried away. Cut that off. Cut that off. And I like having those squares on top of each other. Now, if you want to step your squares up, then use the stylish shapes and die cut you some squares, and then it'll give you the stitching. So that's another way to step it up, is you can put some stitching in there. Now, if you're going to do any quilting, do your quilting first, because if you glue down these squares that have put the stitching in, excuse me, the rollers just might smooth out the stitching around your squares, and it's not really going to be noticeable. So you got to think about your layers, and if you've already die cut something that's put stitching or some kind of design in it, think about that. You wouldn't want to put that down and then run the whole thing through to quilt the card, because you're going to lose the detail that you already put in the pieces that you were going to add. I hope that makes sense. Being that these were just cut squares, there's nothing special about them, I can run this through an embossing folder, which I'm going to do right now. So I will be right back. Where's my plates? And where's my embossing folder? There we go. I'm going to use the crosshatch embossing folder from the online exclusives, and I'm actually going to put my panel in upside down because I want it to look debossed. I am a big fan, if you haven't already realized that, of debossing because it mimics that your quilting stitches would sit down into the fabric, which our fabric is paper, rather than standing up. So that's what I did here. Can you see how the impression is actually down into the paper and not sitting on top of it? I don't know. There you go. I think you can see it. If these were stitches, they're actually laying down into the paper versus this side here where the texture is sitting on top. Totally up to you how you want to do it. It's your preference. I just am a really big fan of debossing. I just think this is beautiful. I love this panel already. And I wasn't really so sure when I was putting it together. I was thinking, oh, I don't know about this one, but I like it. So now that I have my panel done, I know my cluster's gonna sit down here. Oh my goodness, these cards are so fun. I just love them. I am going to go ahead and I'm gonna glue this on to that piece of lemon lolly. And then we will burnish our score line on the front of on our card base, and we can glue this down to the front. Just want that little cute peekaboo border all the way around. And I want to make sure that my sides are down. I don't have any ripples. I want to make sure that it's nice and flat. Oh my goodness, just the texture of this. I just love touching it. This is like going into the quilt shop and just touching the bolts of fabric. I love doing that. I love touching fabric. Okay, I need a little drink of water here. And all the colors that I'm using, like for my layer and my card base, are colors that Stampin' Up! Has suggested on the packaging as coordinating colors. I love that they take the guesswork out of it for us. And then I'm going to glue that to the front and have that nice border all the way around. That's why I started as small as we did making our panel, is because I wanted to have a nice bigger border around the outside. And I really honestly think that had I made the panel bigger, it just started looking way too busy, and there wasn't like a focal point that you could lock in on when you're looking at it. So there is the card. Oh my gosh, I just love this. Whoops, I need to get my transferred some glue from my fingers or somewhere. There we go. Now I'm gonna look at my cluster. Now my label, my background piece to my sentiment, I'm gluing that right to the front of my card. This isn't getting popped up. This is gonna get glued down. I think I'm gonna put it right about there. Now, mind you, this doesn't have to be portrait. You could always do a landscape card with your panel also. So think about that when you start putting your cluster and everything on it. Do you want it landscape or do you want it portrait? This card base does well either way. And I've got, where are my stamped sentiments? Oh, here we go. Hope your day is a happy one. I love this sentiment because the colors are so happy. And that sentiment is from the stamp set So Sincere. So hope your day is a happy one. Happy colors needs a happy sentiment. Now, I am going to pop up my sentiment, but what do I want to do here? Here's something that I thought of after the fact was, what if I fussy cut some flowers? Nope, that's not going to work. But I had to try. Because had this been an area that needed something like that, I could have done it. Now, alone it works, but and whatever, my greenery is going to go. If I didn't have this flower here, this could work. But because of that, I think it runs together and my greens are running into this green. So that's really not an option. So I'm going to bring in my bow punch and some old olive cardstock. And I just want this long, I want that right there, and I want two of them so I can make a cluster. If you would like a really good lesson or tutorial on creating clusters, I want you to go visit Robin Armbrecht at Really Robin Stamps and watch the tutorials. She did a play date. She's done, I think, more than one on clusters, and I learned a lot from her on building a cluster. I am going to tuck these between the sentiment and that base, and it's just a matter of where you want them. And I also like to go outside. I love to go outside of the boundaries. So I think I'm going to go there and maybe there, so that when I pop this, oh, I like that. Okay, so here I can see where my pieces are going to be. I'm going to leave this one here. I'm going to start with this one, and I'm just going to put some adhesive on the stem. I don't want it to lay totally flat. I want the dimension. Whoops. Now I smeared it, but that's okay. That mess is okay because it's going to get covered up. And then this one was about like that. So I'm just going to put, again, adhesive on the stem. I just need to tack it down. You could use glue dots. So when I put some dimensionals on my sentiment, it's going to sit right on top. And that's going to be my cluster. Whoops. Dimensionals. And then you can add embellishments. The samples that I've got to show you, I didn't put any embellishments on. I let the designer series paper and the colors do all the work. But I did pull some bling out to play with. And my card, it can be done at this point. Okay, so we've got a little dimension going on here. I did bring out some colors that I thought would play well. I love the look of metallics on this, or even the cork rounds, very earthy with the flowers and the leaves. But I think I'm going to go with these rustic metallic dots. Again, if I'm looking at it and I just can't make it work, I'm going to consider it as a sign that it doesn't need. I really don't think it needs any embellishments, but if we were to, you guys, it's not even speaking to me with putting embellishments on. Oh, but now that I get them close to the paper, it is. Okay. I think I'll do 2 right there. And I want to keep my bling kind of close to my cluster so that it directs your eye that way. Let's put one right there. Okay, I'm not unhappy with it, but I really think that the card could be done even without the embellishments. And I didn't do anything special with the inside of my card, and actually I didn't even look at finishing the back of them. I just got to, I was having so much fun creating the panel that I just let it be what took my focus. So I want to show you some of the other ones that I did, because I want to show you what I did differently on them. So this I am debossed with the crosshatch folder. I did add some just 1-inch squares. If these were 1.5, then this was 1. So it left this nice even border around it. And this time I did add embellishments, but I didn't on my other ones. So there's that one. And then here's one that is just the 1-inch square. I ran this through the Stitched Whimsy die and just put a border around the outside edge. You really can't see it. I don't know if I would do it again, but it does have some stitching around there. What I did first was, before I used the die to put this border around it, I ran my panel through I just stuck it between the 2 clear plates as if I was die cutting, and just let the rollers push all of my ridges down. Just smoothed out all of my ridges. And then I went back and I put the die on top and put in the border. So that's all that I did differently on that one. And this is where I used my Lemon Lolly card base. What's different about... See, I want to do these in the right order. Oh, this one here. Not that one yet. This one here has the stitched stylish shapes. This is the smallest square, and it puts the stitching around the edges. So this square here's got stitching, this one and this one. There's no debossing or embossing on the front. I did run it through the 2 clear plates though to set all my ridges down and make them flat. Then I added my 1-inch, or I think these are a little over 1 inch. So then I did add the squares. So there's that one. And here's 2 that I did in landscape. This one here, I busted out a retired die. Do you remember this leaf die that looks like a pantograph type machine quilting? I just brought that out and just did an all over stitch. I didn't even put any squares in these other places. I just did the quilting. And then this one's in landscape. Oh, I did do something on the inside of this one. Look at this one. I used some leftover squares and just threw some patchwork squares on the inside on the bottom. So this one I did throw in some extra pieces and just brought the patchwork to the inside of the card. Let me see, did I do anything on this one? Oh, look at here. Here's 3 of the stylish shapes. I keep wanting to call them stitched. The squares that I put down on the inside of this one. I think these are the only 2 that I... Oh, here's a... Oh my goodness, I forgot I even did these. Here's a fussy cut zinnia. I don't know if I like it, but it's there. So there's those. And then one more. I switched out a square for a circle. So here I just, the smallest circle in the deckled circle dies, I just cut out a bunch of those. And so instead of squares, I put circles to give it a different look. If you have a 1-inch circle punch, you could punch some circles to use in your squares. But I was just trying to find different ways to bring some more interest to the patchwork. These could be die cut little flowers that you might have, or punched flowers. You can get really creative with what you want to do to your 1.5-inch squares. And did I do anything on this one? Nope, the inside's not even finished on that. So those are the cards that I did with the patchwork, and no 2 are going to be the same. Unless you identically do them the same, they won't be the same. So that's the fun of it too. So, oh, here's the thunder. Our storms are here. That is the project for today. I'm going to give away 4. So how about the keyword will be just patchwork. If you would like a chance to win a card, just type patchwork in the comments, and then I'll draw 4 winners and send them off some cards. So I hope that you enjoyed today's easy, really just kind of mindless project, although it's very calming. It's almost like putting a puzzle together. And as you can see, no 2 come out the same. So please share your cards over at Quilt Cards and More, the community group. And I will see you next week then. Storms are getting pretty thunderous out there, so I'm going to just say goodbye for now, and I'll see you next week. Again, maybe if this lets me finish.